Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our studies of First Kings. Today we're in First Kings chapter 12. Solomon has passed away, and now Solomon's son Rehoboam sits on the throne of Israel. And one of the first things that's going to happen in Rehoboam's reign is the people are going to come to him with a grievance. And the way that Rehoboam answers that grievance is going to be very telling, and it's going to immediately have an impact on his people and on who he is going to reign over. So let's look at some of the things that we can learn from 1 Kings chapter 12. And there's a lot that we can pull out. There's a lot of things we're not going to have time to fully flesh out today. But I hope that you'll take the time to really consider some of the things that we're going to look at. We're going to begin in the first parts of the chapter when Rehoboam goes to his advisors. The people of Israel have come to him. They have asked him to help them. They have asked him to be kind and generous and considerate toward them. They have asked him to ease some of the burdens that are upon him or upon them. Now, recognize that Solomon, we've talked about him as a builder king. He's not just a wise king, he was the builder king. But with that, all of those building projects and all of those things that he did, there was a lot of strain that was placed on the kingdom of Israel. There were large financial stresses that were placed on the people. There were also large labor stresses that were placed on the people to fulfill those projects and those things that were needing to be done. And so the people come to Rehoboam when Rehoboam becomes king, and they say, "Make our burden lighter and we will happily serve you." Rehoboam's going to go to his advisors. Now, there's two different sets of advisors in Rehoboam's palace. The first one are the advisors that were there in the days of Solomon. They are the older men. They are the men that are of the previous generation, the ones who have been around Israel for a long time. They're going to tell Rehoboam that the wise thing to do is going to be to show his generosity, to show his magnanimity, and to accede to their request. But then there's the younger advisors. Rehoboam doesn't like the advice that the older advisors are given, so he goes to the younger advisors. And these are the ones that grew up with him. These are his friends who are going to be advising him. These were his choices. They tell him he needs to flex his muscles. He needs to be one who really shows them who's boss. He shows his own strength, his own power. He needs to assert his authority before the people. And as such, he needs to tell them that he is the one who is the strong one. Rehoboam likes this idea. And so he's going to go out and he's going to do just exactly what the younger advisors said. He is going to completely reject everything that they've said. He says he's going to make their burdens tougher, that they're going to realize that he is stronger than his father, that he is mightier than his father, and he is going to begin to try to serve out of, or force them to serve out of fear. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to leave and never come back. They are going to see in verse 16, when the king does not listen to them, that they are going to go back to their tents and they are going to leave the kingdom of Rehoboam. 10 of the northern tribes are going to rebel. They are going to go and they are going to strive to just start their own nation because they don't want to serve under Rehoboam. And so Rehoboam is going to lose the largest chunk of his kingdom. Now, we recognize that this is exactly what God prophesied in chapter 11 was going to happen. And so Rehoboam is going to then try to get his kingdom back. He's going to return to Jerusalem. And he's going to try to raise an army. As a matter of fact, he's going to raise an army of 180,000 men between Judah and Simeon, that he is going to then try to go back and forcibly retake those northern tribes and bring them back into the fold. And God is going to tell him in verse 25, or verse 21 rather, no. God is going to send a messenger to King Rehoboam, and he's going to tell them this has happened because I said it was going to happen. This has happened as a part of my will. You are not going to march on your own people. And Rehoboam, to his credit, does not. He turns his army back to their tents. But now we have two kingdoms. The kingdom of Israel has split. You have 10 northern tribes that are going to be led by Jeroboam, just as God has stated in 1 Kings chapter 11. And then you're going to have the southern kingdom of Judah that is going to be reigned by Rehoboam. The kingdom for the remainder of its existence is going to be divided. And it will never come back into this fully functional kingdom again. Now, there will be a time when all the tribes will once again be reunited, as it were, under one banner. But it will only be after the time of captivity. It won't be in the course of a kingdom like in the days of David and Solomon. But now I want us to look at the final lesson, and it may be even the most important and the strongest lesson in chapter 12. And that is the lesson of Jeroboam's worship. Because Jeroboam begins to think in verse 25 that if the people continue going down to Jerusalem to worship at the temple, then they will begin to just decide that they might as well just stay in Jerusalem. And they're not going to want to be under his leadership, and they're not going to want to stay in his kingdom. So he has to do something to entice them to stay where they are. So Jeroboam is going to create his own worship. He's going to create two calves. He's going to place one in Dan and the other in Bethel. One in the north and one in the south. He's going to proclaim that these are their gods which brought them up out of the land of Egypt. He is also going to create his own feast days that are similar to the feast days that God put in effect, but not identical. He is also going to make priests out of whoever he chooses, instead of out of the group of Levites that God said was the priestly tribe. He is also going to be the one who is going to set Israel on a path from which it will never recover. You see, Jeroboam decided that it was better for him to do things his way. Jeroboam decided that it didn't really matter what God said or what God commanded, that doing what he wanted and doing what was best for him was more important and was the right decision for him, and it didn't really matter what God said. We live in a world that thinks very much like Jeroboam. When it comes to worship, most people believe that you find whatever it is that works for you. You find whatever it is that's right for you. And it doesn't really matter if that matches up with what God said to do, as long as it feels good, as long as it makes you comfortable, as long as it makes you happy, that's what you're supposed to do. Except Jeroboam's actions don't make God happy. And the question is, who are we trying to please with our worship? Are we trying to please ourselves? Are we trying to make things easier on us? Or are we trying to be those who are going to be able to say that we have enjoyed what it is we have done? Or are we trying to please God? To make sure that He finds acceptable and that He takes joy in what it is we have done. We need to learn the lesson that is coming from Jeroboam's actions, because God is not going to allow Jeroboam's actions to stand. Remember, God said, if you obey my commandments, I will uphold your kingdom throughout the generations. Jeroboam's not going to uphold his commandments. He's going to try to make his own rules. He's going to do things his own way, and God will respond. But that's chapter 13. I hope these things have been beneficial to you, and I hope that these are things that you might study further and look at in a deeper way. Next time, we will come back and we will begin examining 1 Kings chapter 13, and I hope that you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.